It's a real pleasure to welcome Katherine Newton, CEO of Are You OK today? Welcome, Katherine.
Thank you, Graham. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a joy getting to know you over the years. I've been with Are You OK and having your friendship and support. It's been a good journey thus far, hasn't it?
It really has, and it's been lovely having the last 5 years with you. There's been so much change, so much evolution. Just the pandemic alone in the last 13 months, hasn't that thrown everything into turmoil?
Absolutely. I think that when I signed up for CEO, I definitely didn't sign up for leading through a pandemic. So it's been an enormous growth period for me too, which I'm not sure I was always grateful every single day, but feeling good now.
Excellent. Katherine, what does care in the workplace mean to you?
To me, it means being genuine. I think if you don't genuinely care, if it's not something that's within you, I think it's very hard to cultivate. And I think it's something that's very hard to demonstrate, and people will see through if you're not authentic with it. And I know, Graham, that authentic comes up a lot with our work in Are You OK? But I think care is something that is, as human beings, it's a bit hard. Of course, we've got care towards strangers, and if someone's in distress, then we can help them. But care is so very much about keeping our close relations close. And in the workplace, how do we manage those acquaintances, those boundaries, those relationships, and those friendships? It's a bit different, but I think care still absolutely needs to be there.
Yeah, and with your team, they're obviously in it for great reasons, wanting to make a difference. But is there anything you consciously do to help engender that culture of care?
Definitely. So we've got very much I'd say an open book as a team. So very much encourage people to let us know if you just need some time to yourself, if you just need a bit of that break, or whether you're really needing a good brainstorm session or a good chat, to really be open with each other about what's going to work best for me today. And I think that when you have that openness and you demonstrate that we're all human, we're all going to have our good days and our bad days. We're all going to really perform well some days, and other days we're not. And it's okay to acknowledge that. And I think that if we can have that genuineness and that openness, then we get to know each other a lot better, because I think those layers are peeled back. I think, COVID has shone such a light on workplace culture, in that, of course, when we zoom in to people's homes, I think it's really helped leaders and managers to understand that home life doesn't stop at the work door or the work screen. And so having that openness amongst the team, I think, really forges stronger mateship in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been some challenges, hasn't there, with COVID, where there's natural separation, people are working from home. How have you tried to keep it going? What's been the challenge, and what have you found has worked in terms of keeping the group connected?
100% the best thing that's worked is asking them what's working and what's not. So what would they like? What do they need? We get together on a Zoom call every week. And so at the start of that, we do something silly like show and tell. I'll set like a challenge to bring something to the table, show us. And we often ask for it to be, a memory or a story or something that prompts something in our personal lives. And I think that helps to get to know that person better. And of course, that will then lead to other conversations. Or that might be an idea for this campaign or this resource. And what I've just done throughout the working from home environment is to just keep on checking in with them, having calls, just to say, I'm not calling about work and to see if this has been done and to see how you're going with this project. I'm just seeing how you're doing. Is there anything I can do to help? And are those team meetings working for you?
Yeah. And have you had any surprises in terms of what people have asked for?
Not in terms of what people have asked for, but I have been surprised. The people who I thought would be okay with working from home and enjoy it, a couple of them haven't, and that surprised me because I thought I could. I thought I knew these personalities very well, but I didn't take into consideration I think just the different needs and wants of people when they're in a working environment. I know, of course, that we connect better face to face. I know we have good banter. I know that often the greatest ideas are when we're having those moments, walking for a coffee, walking to the bathroom, or, those off the cuff moments. But I really thought that some of the team would enjoy the quiet, peace and quiet at home. And actually, they thrive better in a busy face-to-face environment. So for me, it's about acknowledging that and making sure that I check in with them more to see how they're going and what's working for them. And Teams, Microsoft Teams has been really good. So people just keep that on, and people just, have a quick check-in and a quick joke and a quick grab a cuppa together as it's needed.
And do you think it's, in terms of relating to those that loved it and those that not so much, do you think it's as simple as extrovert, introvert, or not really?
That's what I thought, and this has really taught me about introverted extroverts, which I think is a little bit of what I am. So I would, consider myself an energetic person. I would consider myself someone who doesn't struggle with, with personal and relationship connections. I'm very much a people person. But what this has taught me is that I do actually need my time at home to recharge my batteries, and then I'm good to go. So it's been interesting that a couple of us in the team have realised that about ourselves, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's helpful, and maybe it might have been different in my 20s or my 30s, but I think now this is where I'm at, and I'm embracing it.
Yeah, very good. It's funny, my wife manages a very large research team, and there's quite a few introverts in there, but they still enjoy just being around people, not necessarily talking or interacting, but just having that presence of people around. And she was a bit surprised by that as well. She thought that, they'd be very happy working from home. But there's definitely something that happens in a physical space, isn't there?
Definitely. No, I can relate to what she's saying there.
For the purpose of our listeners, can you just explain how you got to where you are today? Just briefly.
Of course. My career was in insurance, so I came straight out of college and went into and fell into a job in an insurance company and transferred over here. And I really enjoyed the general management, operations management side of things, but I was working a lot, and I realised that I hadn't volunteered and hadn't done anything for charity for some time. And I was thinking about what might be around and what I may be useful at. And I've always seemed to be that person, which I now understand is what we call an accidental counsellor. It's that person who people tend to share things and come to, and you have good chats. And so counselling was something that interested me after doing psychology at college. And I saw the Lifeline telephone counselling course in my local paper. It's a 6-month course, and so it was something to very much get my teeth into. And I always share that you get put into groups when you start the training, and my particular mentor for my group sat down and said, "This is going to change your life." And I thought, oh gosh, that's like, I'm sure it's going to be really good and I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm not quite sure it's going to change my life. But look at me now, it absolutely did. There were goodness, it taught me so much about listening. It taught me so much about empathy, really opening my eyes, non-judgment, and really how to listen and help support people. I can't fix the problems, but I was certainly there to help support and to listen and guide. And I wondered if my skills would transfer into the not-for-profit space. And indeed, it seems that they have. So I took a role at White Ribbon, so preventing men's violence against women. And then 5 years ago, the role of campaign director came up with Are You OK? And I was lucky enough to be given that position. And now, of course, in the CEO role, which is so rewarding and humbling and so proud. So I think it's definitely been a journey that I've really enjoyed and I'm so grateful for. And I just love prevention. I really love prevention work. There is so much that's needed in the service sector, and support services, the funding, the resources, everything. I'm so supportive of that. But I do like to try and stop things before they happen, or at least try to stop small things getting and becoming big things, like the words of our late founder, Gavin Larkin.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you work, how long did you work for as a Lifeline counsellor? How long?
I was on the phone for just under 2 years.
2 years. And what did you learn about people and about Australia through that experience?
There were two types of calls that I was really surprised at hearing. I was really surprised at the number of women in abusive relationships. I luckily had not been exposed to that challenge, and I was really shocked and surprised. So that was certainly the first thing. And then the other was the need and the desire for people to want to tell someone what was happening and what was going on, but just that real stigma, there's a lot of shame, a lot of feelings of, I don't deserve to be, to get any help. There are people so much worse off than me, or I really I know that they'll see me as weak. And I was thinking, goodness, when people sadly take their lives, we hear so often that there are hundreds of people at the funeral, lots of friends and family who said, I was here. Why didn't they reach out? I would have helped. I would have listened. But I think that stigma is really there. And that's what I'm hoping that we're contributing to, breaking down that feeling of it is weak to be challenged. It is weak to be going through things. And also learning that people thrive with mental illness. People thrive going through their challenges, and it is possible to have that thriving lifestyle. But it does take that village, that community, that family to accept and understand what's happening. Also learned that Aussies are very much into mateship. So very much into wanting to look out for each other, but sometimes perhaps not so good at putting up that mirror to themselves to recognise that they need help. Yeah,
very true. And White Ribbon had a great purpose and made quite an impact. And what was some of the insights you got there? Because as I understand it, you just mentioned you got some really good insight when you were on the phone on Lifeline to then, I guess, trying to grow campaigns. Was it easier or harder than you thought to get things off the ground there?
I think it was harder than I thought because it's such a common form of behaviour in Australia, and it does go towards men as well as women. White Ribbon's role is to prevent predominantly men's violence against women. I found it hard because I think it's a very challenging and confronting topic. It's confronting. Of course, it's challenging and confronting for the people experiencing the abuse, but for the bystanders, for those close to people, to be able to bring up the conversation, to be able to share, I'm worried about you. I can see that something's happening. And the way in which we approached it is that if the violence is being conducted by men, then we should be engaging men to stand up alongside other men to say, this behaviour is not on, this is not what's right, this is where can we go to get you some help? And I think that it's come so far in domestic violence and family violence, particularly in the workplace. We've got leave policies now. We've got a lot more understanding and a lot more openness. And I think that is just testament to the decades of work that have happened. And I'm thankful that we are where we are. But I think there's so much more work to do.
One of the people I interviewed previously was Chris Sutherland, and he was the CEO of a large group called Programmed, and he went to, I think they had about 25,000 employees, and he went to see Rose Batty speak and just came away from there and said, there must be something that we can do. We're 25,000, we're a country town, this is sure to be going on here. And in a very, very short period of time, they released this policy, which I think was pretty amazing. What he basically said when they launched it was that if anyone's experiencing this, the full resources of the company are behind you: financial, legal, transport, security, everything. And he two of the people on his executive team were female, two were male. And they were the contact people, not HR, work health safety. They were the contact people.
Yeah.
It was a one-page document, and in the first week there were 6 people or 6 women that came forward, and they were able to put it into practice. And it just seems, and it was so successful, and yet you see many groups, particularly the federal parliament, where they just sort of agonise over it and don't get anything happening. But this, you know, he even got pushback from some of his employees to say, "Oh, we've got to put a cap on it, you know, so many dollars or something." He said, no one's going to fudge domestic violence. And, you know, I just thought that was a great example of really doing something really constructive, but also simple.
Yeah, and it's showing those who are experiencing the violence that they're believed, which is quite often the most important thing. I believe you. I believe that this is happening. How can I help?
Yeah, very much. And I guess by, you know, having those 4 people from the executive team showed that they were taking it really, really seriously. It must have been disappointing when White Ribbon folded. Why do you think that was?
I think there's a number of factors why White Ribbon no longer exists in the capacity that it did. I'm really pleased that it's been taken up by the new organisation, and I really hope that the White Ribbon continues as a symbol of hope for those who are experiencing it and those who really stand up against it. I think that I wasn't with White Ribbon obviously when it ceased to be as it was, so I can't really comment on the direct reasons, but it's certainly not for people, you know, stopping the support or not wanting to believe in it or to see it grow. So I'm really pleased to see that it is continuing.
Yeah. You started as a campaign director for Are You OK? And part of that was this big road trip. Would you mind just telling people who may not be aware what exactly that involved and what you saw along the way that you just had never seen before?
Oh my goodness, or practically everything, because I got to see, I was so lucky, so privileged and lucky to be able to see many parts of Australia that many Australians don't. So they're called the conversation convoys, and they're a way for us to connect local people with local services using the simple question of "Are you okay?" You know, lots and lots of Australians know "Are you okay?" So it's about bringing that known message into a community where we're invited. So it's where we reach out to schools, we reach out to workplaces, local community groups, and say, look, would it be helpful if we come through town, put on an event where we can bring people together, and also a chance for local support services to network and see what each other's doing, and really to create a safe space for people to come along and say, look, I'm worried about someone, what can I do? Talk through conversations. But what was really surprising about the conversation convoys is that I think some of the best conversations actually happened on the road. So on bathroom breaks, going into petrol stations, going into the local pie shops. And they particularly happened with men. So I think it's because, you know, there were quick conversations where they were not a counselling session. We weren't going to take them anywhere. It was literally, I mean, I've just got out of an Are You OK car, and people would say, you know, I haven't been doing so well. I've split up with my missus, or I've just lost my job, or I've got some finance troubles. But look, I have got a mate, and he's been really good, and he's helping me out. So thanks for what you're doing, and keep going. It's really helpful. And then they'd be on their way, and you think, oh, okay, you know, I would love to keep on chatting, but it was very much, I think, because there was an exit point. It was very short and sweet, and I think that there's a lot of resilience out there in amongst regional and rural communities. And I think that whilst there may be more stigma, the communities just come together. I mean, just local people supporting local. It's just, demonstrated in folds.
Yeah. And I remember you also came across some quite tragic sort of circumstances. There was a small town where there'd been 3 people take their lives, which must have been quite extraordinary, you know, for such a small group. Were there other places like that as well?
Yeah, certainly. Unfortunately, there are towns that experience clusters and regions that experience clusters of suicide. It's really important that Are You OK chooses, that we choose the right moment to go into a community when there's been loss. It's important that we want to do no harm, so we don't want people to feel guilty about perhaps not asking or perhaps spotting the signs of struggle. So the timing of when we come in is really important, and when it's a time where people are making their way through the grieving process, it can be really empowering for them to bring other members of family, friends, community groups together to say, look, let's try to prevent another tragedy from happening here. So lots of really heavy, sad conversations, of course, but always with hope, I would describe it as.
Yeah. So you started as campaign director, then transitioned to CEO. What didn't you expect about taking on that role? Were there any surprises that you hadn't anticipated?
Yes, COVID-19. So I became CEO in April 2019.
Yeah.
For July and August of that year, in the lead up to Are You OK Day that year, I was on the road for 9 weeks. So an incredible amount of learning and experience there. Gosh, so many stories, so many moments that just, really opened my mind and really helped me to reinforce the power of listening to the community's feedback. So the feedback of those who are struggling, the feedback of those who are supporting someone, the feedback of those who don't really know us and don't know what we do. I think it's really important to continually evolve and measure, and you can only do that by listening. So really, really had that reinforced during that year. And then when COVID hit in March, I felt as though, goodness, mental health is so important right now. What can I be doing to really walk the talk, to make sure that I'm demonstrating that leadership to my team and the wider masses?
What do you think are the foundations for really great teams?
Definitely, as I mentioned at the start with the care, definitely the genuineness. I think being authentic in your leadership. Now, that doesn't have to mean that it's always yellow and fluffy. Of course, there's managements, there's skills that we need, and there's boundaries. But I think it's important to lead and to work alongside people with that element of genuineness and openness. I also think that nipping things in the bud is a really big piece of it. So if you can see someone's unhappy, if you can see that something just isn't working for someone, don't let it fester. Don't let it bottle up. Sit down and just say, look, I can see this is what's happening. How can we change this? What's needed? Because this is where I'm coming from. I see where you're coming from. How can we meet in the middle there? But I think if you don't have that as business as usual, that kind of practice, and if you don't have that that natural way of engaging with your team, then that's going to be very difficult. So I think if you can build those foundations, then the productivity is going to be higher, because you're going to be able to work out the challenges and the successes as you go.
Yeah. How do you make it safe for people to bring up problems?
I think it's all about sharing your own problems. So, not of course, personal, walk the talk, show that vulnerability as and when you feel confident and comfortable to do so. But you're not supposed to have all the answers. We can't all go through life having always on the ups without problems. And so I think if you're open to say, look, I've got this issue, I've got this problem, I don't quite know how to tackle it. This is what I'm thinking. Does anyone else have any thoughts or ideas on this? Then that opens it up to be that business as usual for people to mimic that behaviour, or to at least start to bring in elements of that behaviour. We're all going to face problems and challenges.
Yeah, and I think it is a really fantastic thing for leaders to say they haven't got all the answers, and they have their own struggles as well. And one of the lovely things about this series of interviews is just finding real humility, I think, in many of these high-performing leaders. They're just they're honest. I think I may have mentioned Mike Schneider at one stage, and he has the 4 H's of leadership: honest, humble, helpful, and happy. They're his 4 H's, which I think are really are really good. What do you do if you're...
One of our
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to share with you, of course, our friend Brendan Maher, the former CEO of Are You OK, and now at Movember. I'm really trying to continue, and something that he taught me is that we're in the trenches together. So whilst I might not be on completely the same page as you, or I might be thinking that we could tackle something a bit differently, if we've had a discussion and we've agreed that this is the path that we're going down, then I'm in it with you. That there is no point in us trying to find ulterior motives or go off on our own way. If we've agreed, then that's what we'll do together. Yeah. And I think, I'm really learning a lot from that.
Yeah. What do you do for self-care? How do you keep fuel in your own tank?
I'm a big walker, not as big as you, Graham, because I know that you do. You do lots of your hikes and the treks, but I really enjoy a good walk by the ocean. So I think I'm a bit of a water baby. So having that, just having that fresh air, seeing that expanse just really helps to, I guess, kind of move through things.
Yeah. So walking and swimming, is that ocean swimming or in a pool or?
Yes, it is ocean swimming, but I do say it's not actually, I'm not a very particularly good swimmer. So I would say it's more of a dip. Ocean dipping and walking.
You're not one of the bold and beautiful at Manly, are you? Swimming around
No, I'm
Beach?
not, and I feel no, I'm not. But I envy them and admire them every time I'm walking alongside them as they're swimming. I didn't grow up very close to water, so freestyle was a bit of a challenge for me, and I think you definitely need that for the bold and the beautiful.
Yes. You mentioned Brendan Maher previously, and a really important message you've learned from him. What other people have you learned from in terms of your leadership? It's been a guide for you.
I think that I've had such wonderful bosses throughout my career. I think the humility came from my manager when I was in insurance company. She was a female leader at a time where there were not many around, and that humility and that genuineness really shone through. That person-centered approach really shone through there. And then my boss at an insurance company where I came over to Australia had such energy and still does, has incredible pace, and he really taught how to, just go for things, just give it a go, tackle it, do it with energy, do it with passion, and you'll figure it out along the way. So lots of really good guidance. And I think that my dad actually gave me two pieces of advice that I always consider, both professional and personal. The first was just give 30 seconds. And what he meant by that was when mobile phones came out and when I got my driver's license, it was, just think of us, just 30 seconds. We just need to know that you've arrived, that you're there, that you're safe. It doesn't take you a lot, but it also helps us feel better. And so I always think now in my role at Are You OK, and what we hope that people do is to give that moment to people, to think of others. And it doesn't have to be very rehearsed, very formal, very long. It's just, think of somebody else and how they might be feeling. And the other, he said, was reduce the risks wherever you can. So regardless of if it's work or travel or something else, just think of the risks and try to reduce them as best you can. And you've done your best.
They're very, very practical tips, aren't they?
They are indeed. He's a practical man.
We're not far out. We're only about 6 weeks from Are You OK Day 2021. Can you just let people know about what the theme is this year and why you and the team chose that theme?
Of course, yes. The theme this year is, are they really okay? Ask them today. And we've come to that theme. The call to action this year is to consider, do you really know how the people are going in your world? Because chances are there's going to be someone who might be struggling, particularly at the moment. We all go through life's ups and downs. So sometimes when we get that response that says, I'm fine, or we're just given a real surface level, tokenistic, hey, how you going? Just dig a little bit deeper. It's very much around finding a moment to make it meaningful, to really ask, how are you going? I want to listen. I want to hear. Is there anything I can do? And so this year, it's really about asking people to go to that next level.
Yeah, it's because that's often, in the Australian vernacular, and particularly for men, are you okay? Yeah, fine. It's a throwaway line.
Yep.
And I've also experienced where asking, are you really okay, makes a real difference. It just makes people sit back a bit and really consider how things are going, which I think is really good.
Exactly. We're really hoping that that with this call to action, that people just pause a moment and consider, why am I asking and how am I asking? So am I really asking for the right reasons? Am I, have I noticed something? Am I doing it respectfully? Because of course, people might not be ready to open up to you, particularly if there's not trust, which is what we're always hearing, is that if there's not trust, then you're not going to get that honest answer. So do ask it authentically, and then take that time to really consider, how am I going to ask this question? Where is that person going to feel safe and comfortable? If perhaps this is going to be the first time that they actually say, you know what, no, I'm not. And they might just want you to listen. Sometimes that's all that's needed. But sometimes they might need some extra support. So where are they going to feel safe and comfortable? How can you best support them? As Gavin Larkin said, didn't he? It's a time to think about someone else other than yourself.
And it's so true. And you've also just launched today the Indigenous initiative called Stronger Together. Can you tell us a bit about that as well?
Yes, Stronger Together is our message for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. We know that language plays such an important part of social and emotional well-being for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. And so we've been encouraged by lots of people in community who let us know how they say, are you okay, in their way. So we're asking them to consider how they ask their mob, are you okay? Lots of different examples, lots of different words and gestures used. And so what we're trying to do is show that it doesn't have to be those letters. It's about, how do you connect with your loved ones in your way? And then that's going to lead to more projects around translation into lots of different languages. And we're really excited that we can bring to life how people are connecting and how they stay connected. That's always our goal. So really excited to see what comes back.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever been through a crisis, either business or personal, that was really tough for you, really challenging?
I would say certainly the last year has been a challenge, because I'm away from my family. So I'm definitely, aside from being a leader at a time, during the pandemic, there is certainly been some more wobbles for me than I ever had in my life before. I'm very close to my mum, my dad, and my sister, and they're in the UK. And quite often we spend a lot of quality time together every year, because they get to come over and spend time with me. So I'm certainly struggling with that. But putting that to one side, I was trying to reflect on a time where I didn't handle a conversation very well with someone in my team, and that was before my time at Lifeline. And I've really reflected on what I didn't do well and what I could have done better. So it wasn't a tough time for me, but in terms of my role, are you okay? I think it's important to share with people that, I got it wrong and you can get it wrong, but it's about thinking about what can you do if that situation ever comes up again. Someone was very distressed, and I just didn't have the tools in my back pocket to understand what was happening and to know how best to support them. And the error I made was that I didn't ask them what they needed. I took them to a busy cafe, and they were so anxious and so much going on in their mind. A busy cafe was absolutely the worst place I could have taken them. They actually just wanted to walk in a quiet spot. And a number of other things came up that I could have done better. But I think that when we all go through challenging times, it's, how did I handle that, and what can I do better next time?
Yeah. And we live and learn, don't we? It's part of life, is growing with experiences and learning with what doesn't work as well as what does work. It's just
absolutely
the way things go. You mentioned swimming and walking, really important to you, and I guess travel back to the UK and that sort of things. Do you ever have any other hobbies or activities that you help you be really present?
Be an auntie. So I don't have children. I have my partner and I have chosen not to have children, but I absolutely love the role of auntie. So doesn't that just demand that you have to be present when there are small children around? So my niece is now 11 and 7-year-old twins, boy and girl. And I have them most weekends to spend time with, because my partner is a FIFO worker in Papua New Guinea, as his brother. So their dad is also away a lot. So my sister-in-law and I really enjoy spending time. And then, of course, when the dad and uncle comes home, they take over and it's their time. But I think being present with them, I'm really seeing my niece really growing up and really interested in hearing what she's learning at school in terms of empathy and friendship and support, and that it's okay not to be okay. Didn't have anything like that when I was growing up. So I'm like a little sponge at the moment with her.
Yeah. And I know also from a personal level, your partner, Jarvis, right, was overseas in Papua New Guinea and couldn't get back for how long? How long was he over there before
4 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He missed the whole thing. He went the week before COVID hit, and he came back in the first week of July. And I picked him up from the airport and he said, "Oh, everything seems fine." I said, "Yes, that's because you've missed everything." He was on a site in the jungle in Papua New Guinea and literally missed everything.
Because that must have made it tough as well, having him away during that period of time. I'm sure that wouldn't have made things easily.
No, particularly, as I was separated, obviously still separated from family. So that was just another layer, I think, to the separation. But we've been together 10 years and he has always worked away. And so I always say to people, look, it's just about communication with relationships. We have had to learn how to communicate, how to be angry, how to be frustrated, how to be sad on the phone and on FaceTime with each other. And it's we learned very quickly that by not being honest and open about how you're feeling doesn't work. So certainly I certainly can empathize with those with FIFO relationships.
Yeah, definitely. So it's been wonderful to catch up today, Katherine. But I'd just be interested on your thoughts about this. If you could, knowing what you know now, and you could go back to your 20-year-old self and give your 20-year-old self advice, what would you say to that person?
I'd say keep on being a people person, because it will go far. You don't think that at the time I didn't see it as a skill. I didn't see that relationship building was a skill. I was so focused on other sorts of, of performance-driven and management-driven skills. So I'd say probably worry less about what people think of you and really gravitate to how you're building and enhancing these relationships, because it's valuable.
Very much so. A great way to finish, because a conversation could change your life.
Indeed, it does, and it can.
Great catching up, Katherine. Thanks for being part of the Caring CEO.
Thank you, Graham.
Thanks for joining us today. I hope you've learned something new and heard some practical tips that you can try with your team. If you've enjoyed this interview today, please rate us on iTunes, Spotify, or your favourite podcast platform. When you rate us, it helps other people to find us. We also welcome any comments. If you're interested in seeing more details about our scalable We Care mental health training programs, please visit us at factorc.com.au. Our goal for these programs is to make them accessible, practical, and ongoing. If you've been impressed by a caring CEO you would like us to interview, please email details to factorc.com.au. Thanks again for joining us.